Hello guys and gals, and welcome. So today I wanted to talk about something interesting, and yes, from what you can see on the screen, you should surmise that what we're going to be talking about is the Butcher. So the Butcher is a very interesting game mechanic that has been introduced in Diablo 4, and although we could say perhaps this game mechanic has existed in some other games, like for instance Lord of the Rings, Shadows of Angmar with the Nemesis system. With the Nemesis system, you always knew that they were coming for you. You know, it was like they basically announced their presence and were like, I'm coming for them cheeks. Whereas the Butcher kind of caught us, well, most of us, by surprise, those of us who didn't have it spoiled. We didn't really quite know that the Butcher was coming until the Butcher actually came. And what does the Butcher represent? Well, he's a particularly difficult monster due to a couple very important mechanics that he has on him. Number one, he is always unstoppable, which basically means that he cannot be crowd controlled of any type. This is important because, well, if you can't be crowd controlled, then a lot of classes are SOL. Also, he seems to do an exorbitantly large amount of damage for his level. So I'm not exactly sure 100% that he's being level capped, but he is, according to the screen here, level 19, and I am level 20, which would put him one level underneath of me. However, SOL is level 18, which puts him one level above SOL, and poor little Luna is only level 7 here, and she's just struggling to do her best. So it almost makes me think that maybe they averaged the level between my level and Soul's to give us a level 19. Now, even though he's one level under me, he's still kicking my butt pretty good. And ironically, I didn't realize that I was using a one-handed hammer at this particular point in time, so I'm missing half of my DPS from the totem. But it is a very fun mechanic. Now, we encountered the Butcher quite a few times during the beta. Sometimes he clapped my cheeks, sometimes I clapped his cheeks. It really depended on when he found me. A lot of the times he would find me when I was like a level 10 rogue with like white equipment and blue equipment and maybe one rare that like a pair of boots that somebody gave me. Like the majority of the time he just kind of like always snuck up on me at the worst moment. Another thing that we need to talk about with his mechanics is that he disappears when he dies. So he has a very, very good drop table. When you kill him, there is almost a 100% chance that you will get a legendary of some type. And as it turns out, apparently also there's a special item that you can get from him that I actually get in this clip. So stick around till the end. Now, when he dies, when you die, if all of you die, he just disappears. So you are essentially left out of that loot. So if you do not kill him, there is no going back to kill him later. And this is very, very interesting to me because it's just a really cool mechanic. First off, he's basically better than the actual boss of the dungeon. So if you do happen to get this particular monster to come attack you in a dungeon, you want to stop everything you're doing and kill him. Because the drop table that he has is very, very good in terms of, like, legendary items. So you will basically guarantee get at least one legendary from him, if not multiple. Then on top of that, you have a chance to get his other item, his special item. Now, because he's more important and actually, honestly, more difficult than the boss of the dungeon, it does take considerable effort to beat him. Now, there are some pretty known, proven strategies to beating him, and once you know that he's coming, it's not that big of a deal, unless you're in hardcore. Because in hardcore, he's going to clap them cheeks. So it's really interesting, the hardcore topic, because we kind of have to discuss that as well. So this is a monster that will surprise you. And hardcore characters don't tend to like surprises because, well, surprises can equal death, and death is obviously permanent in hardcore. And the Butcher represents a pretty nasty surprise for a lot of hardcore characters. In fact, I'd like to know how many of you hardcore players got your cheeks clapped by Mr. Butcher down here, because that'd be a fun one to see down in the comments. Now, I did eventually manage to kill him, even despite the fact that I was not using one of my weapons and had half DPS. Also, despite the fact that we had a level 7 with us, who I'm sure was struggling herself. And the fact that the butcher like really wanted to clap my cheeks specifically. It felt like he was just always on my cheeks and not nobody else's cheeks. Like my cheeks were special, and I don't know why. And I tried my best to stagger my boy here. I did eventually get him staggered, so that is something that you can do, despite the fact that you cannot obviously crowd control him. He can be staggered like a boss. So when you build up enough stagger on his bar, he does go down for a couple seconds so that you can wail on him. It's not really a particularly long time. And here you go. He died, and he dropped me a unique axe. That's right, buddies. He dropped me the friggin' Butcher's Cleaver, which I was super excited about. The Butcher's Cleaver is apparently a unique item that can drop specifically from him. And as I was saying earlier, you know, this is definitely something that is a special drop specifically for him. Now, the reason why I'm making this video and why I thought it was so cool is because I feel like this mechanic is a great success, and it's something that they should build upon. The Butcher mechanic is definitely something that I think should be in pretty much every Diablo game forward. Diablo 5, Diablo 6, Diablo 7, I don't care how many Diablos there are. This mechanic, I'll call it the Butcher mechanic, is definitely a very, very beautiful mechanic. And it's something that I think is welcomed by most players. Like, they really, really are interested in fighting him. Some people were actually sad that he didn't come and try and clap them cheeks. But, you know, it's one of those things that I think may actually become a staple among all games from this point forward. We may see other monsters showing up in dungeons, you know, at inopportune times, trying to kill us, and all of it comes together to be perfect. Because the Butcher, of course, in Diablo 1 was that monster that, you know, scared us. You know, he was there at a time when we were at our weakest, and because he was there at a time when we were at our weakest, we got them cheeks clapped. And let's rewind a little bit so we can see a little bit more of the Butcher action. I'm curious whether they've put more of these monsters within Diablo 4 as well. Not just the Butcher, obviously. There are other monsters that could potentially have this mechanic. Now, it's important to note that not only does he appear in dungeons, I've also got confirmation that he appears in cellars as well. So, you know those little dinky cellars with like one group of monsters in them that doesn't even really have that much content to it? Well, apparently the Butcher can appear in the cellars as well to come clap your cheeks. So I might give you a reason to go into the cellars more often to see if you can encounter the Butcher and test your mettle. Now, most of the time when I came across the Butcher solo, it didn't go well. In groups, it was much better. And I think it just has to do with the fact that, number one, there's like no way to stop him from coming at you. You can't run away from him. And obviously crowd control doesn't work. So you're stuck with a very odd situation where the only thing you can do is just tank the damage. Now, my boy could tank the damage, but only when his cooldowns were up. And that was part of the issue. So, like, he had Earthen Bulwark, he had some Cyclone Armor, and some other various things that he was using. And when his Earthen Bulwark and all the others were up, he could tank the damage just fine. But as soon as all that went down, yeah, good luck tanking the damage there, buddy. It was just a very, very fun fight in general. And I think on every single character I've come across, it's been a very fun fight. It's also been a very build testing fight. Like, you know, a lot of the times you think about things like, well, this will be good in groups, but it's going to be really crap against bosses. Then the Butcher comes to clap your cheeks, and you realize just how bad your build is against bosses. Yeah, you can take out that big giant group of monsters just fine, but when a boss comes at you to clap them cheeks, you really don't have much of an opportunity to fight back. And it makes you think a little bit about how you're going to make your build, maybe how to adjust your build so that your build is more single target or better against bosses specifically. Maybe throw a little bit of extra, you know, damage output on there. Maybe throw a little bit of extra tankiness so that when the Butcher comes for you, You don't have to, die so easily. And of course, with the butcher specifically, once you know that he's coming and once you know how he's set up, you could potentially, prepare yourself for him, which is why I am actually very interested to find out whether they're going to program in some more monsters, because it would be very cool if there was a cacophony, so to speak, of monsters that it could potentially spawn in a dungeon and fight you. Maybe Duriel shows up and fights you. Maybe Iswal shows up and fights you. Maybe there's a couple different monsters that can show up and fight you at various times. Ones that come specifically for you to try and kill you. Maybe it could be by act. So when you're in Act 1, it's the Butcher. When you're in Act 2, it's, Duriel. Or when you're in Act 3, it's, I don't know, the council or something. Maybe it could be like a group of monsters that come and try and ambush you in the dungeon. But the really cool thing is that you're just in a dungeon. You don't really expect it. You're just in the dungeon, you're doing your thing, you're running along, and you're having fun. And all of a sudden, the butcher shows up to clap them cheeks. Now, I do have a graphic. I'm going to bring that up on the screen here. And so this one is for open beta. And as you can see here, we've got... the butcher was killed 576,662 times, so they're keeping track. The butcher killed 1,727,973 players. Holy Jesus. And that's not all. So that was only open beta, and we also have early access beta, which early access beta has different numbers. And as you can see here, we had 568,677 players butchered, with 128,176,000 for the actual butcher kills. Now, if we were to take these and actually add them up together, what would we get? All right, so I went ahead and added them up in the background with the video paused, and it looks like the butcher killed 2.3 million players. And was killed in return a total of 700,000 times. Butcher's got a pretty good kill-to-death ratio there. However, Ashava, holy crap, Ashava literally has a kill-to-death ratio even greater than the Butcher. We only killed Ashava like 40,000 times, and Ashava killed us about 14.5 million times. Absolutely silly. And as you can see here, most played class was Sorceress and Necromancer, which was really interesting. I think just in general, I think the Butcher has been a rousing success, and I wanted to make a video going over the fun of the Butcher. I think that's pretty much it, though, and I want to know what you guys think about the Butcher. Did you love him? Did you hate him? Did he not come and visit you and you're just sad because you didn't get to fight him? Are you a hardcore character and you got killed by him and you're upset? Are you a hardcore character and you got killed by him and you're happy because it was an actual challenge that you had fun with? Did you have no problem whatsoever with the Butcher and you want to brag about how everyone's a namby-pamby pansy and they shouldn't have died to the Butcher, despite the fact that literally 2.3 million people did die to the Butcher? So I think it proves that the Butcher was quite a significant challenge and did indeed pose a serious threat to most players. And I think it was mainly, honestly, just due to the fact that he would come at the most inopportune times. And I think a lot of people that brag that they killed the Butcher very easily were also, quite honestly, well set up in equipment, whereas those of us who fought the Butcher at inopportune times were usually wearing a bunch of garbage equipment that we had laying over. This guy in particular, he's just got a bunch of garbage legendaries that I had sitting in the stash. Quite a few of them aren't even for his class, by the way. He's got some rogue items, he's got some other silly items, and quite honestly, I think the Butcher's Axe was one of the best items he had going for him. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos. And as always, keep watching.